Hello, welcome to MedCircle's YouTube channel. You're looking at Kyle Kittleson and
Jackie Colbeth.
there you go. I didn't prep you on that one.
Guilty.
Jackie Colbeth is the host of It's All in Your Head podcast, where each week you can learn about people who have lived experiences in mental health, what struggles they faced, how they overcame them, and more. I was so thankful on this week's topic, Jackie, on panic disorder. Even somebody who I consider myself highly educated on mental health. I got some tidbits away from this interview. I thought it was great. You interviewed Amanda Stern.
Yes.
Yeah. How was it, and what was it what you expected interviewing on the topic of anxiety and panic?
You know, I've learned to go into things with very more open mind than less as far as expectations, right? Just knowing like the stigmas that people all carry with their respective diagnoses and that stuff. What I think stood out to me the most, or what I could really learn, or what was driven home that I didn't really know, was just the level. Like, I think Amanda does a great job describing to the audience or the reader, whomever, just like the level of anxiety with being diagnosed with panic disorder. You know, you are in a constant state of panic. And if you think of times in your life when you've been super, super, super high anxiety, and then just, you know, multiply that ad infinitum and have that be a daily, you know, occurrence. I think the gravity for me, because of course I assumed it was like a tough cross to bear like anything else. But I think what really blew me away was just how descriptive she was of the just constant level and state that you're living in.
Yeah, I remember I've had 3 panic attacks in my life, or what I assume were panic attacks.
Sure.
And what she explained was having a panic attack when there is something worth panicking about around, maybe something scary is happening, or maybe something, tumultuous is happening. That in some ways makes sense. Your body is having a natural response to an unnatural event. Right. However, when nothing's going on, or when seemingly nothing's going on, and you are having all of those intense feelings chronically, I can't, Jackie. I literally cannot imagine what it would be like to experience the feelings I experienced having a panic attack for any long periods of time. I mean, even if it was an hour long, I don't know how I would go through that. I don't know how I would do it.
I think if everyone kind of asks themselves that and takes themselves there for a minute, you do realize, you know, this isn't me having a tightness in my chest because I'm nervous about an interview or a date or a, you know, meeting. That's anxiety, but that's not panic disorder by any means. And it's people just kind of use anxiety in generalized terms, which, you know, there's a time and a place, but you still should really get to know the other varieties that are within there, because with something like panic disorder or things like PTSD or CPTSD, you know, these are things that are super traumatic because they're happening constantly.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
To your point, it's like, good Lord, there's no like end.
Yeah. I'd love to, in case people haven't seen or listened to your podcast yet, I'd love to play this clip talking about how Amanda's mother intervened with good intention to help her daughter, but Amanda said in actuality, this help might have actually hindered her from finding the success that she inevitably did find. So let's take a look at that clip, please.
That my mother really wanted to alleviate my pain, but because she didn't know anything about anxiety or, mental illness or panic or anything. She did all the wrong things.
Sure.
And it's not, again, not her fault.
No.
She did what she thought would be helpful, which was to remove the obstacles from my life.
Okay.
So instead of helping me to face my fear, she removed my fear so that I wouldn't have to face it. And that made things so much worse for me, because what it does when you allow someone to sort of get away with it and, or not have to deal with the looming thing they have to do, the big presentation, the going away, is that it sort of validates for the person who is scared that they are right to be scared, that the world is too hard for them to handle.
Yeah, I could see.
If the world weren't too hard for them to handle, they would be able to face this thing with some help. So no one helped me to face anything. And because they didn't know how to do it themselves. So instead, these things were removed, sleepovers, for instance.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
Me neither. Growing up, no way. My mother knew she'd be getting a call. It may be around, like the ass crack of dawn and it, or even before then. But yes, I when I read that in the book, I identified with that a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I had one and I had to come home. But, if there were birthday parties, slumber parties, or anything like that, and I would say, I can't do it. And there was never a period of time where she would, or anyone would be like, you can do it. And here's how.
Yeah.
And let's take it slow and let's break it down. And, so no one helped me to manage my emotions or, my emotions in the face of hardship. And so my life just became harder and harder and smaller and smaller.
That's such especially I can picture and understand how impactful that would be as a child to be learning the lesson unintentionally that you're not strong enough to handle this.
Right.
This is too difficult for you. And the way we navigate this is to avoid.
Yes. The subtext is brutal.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, Jackie, I was a competitive swimmer and I started at, I think, 9 years old.
Yeah.
Maybe a little younger. And I went to my very first swim meet. Oof. And my anxiety was through the roof. I mean, I just remember panicking. I was so nervous to do it all. And I get up on the block and I'm on the block getting ready to do whatever this event was. And while I'm on the block, I go, nope, I'm getting off. I'm not doing this. And I walk down, I just walk off and walk away and I start crying. And it was overwhelming. And if I could see if my dad or mom had said, then swimming isn't for you, then this isn't for you. We're just going to go do something else, or we're going to go home, or we're going to take you out of this.
Right.
I could see myself learning the lesson that, I'm not good enough for this. I don't have
It makes perfect sense psychologically, even though that's obviously, I don't think the intention at all. Right. But I think a lot of times, and then another thing I liked about Amanda is she does bring up the subtext of what certain inferences are that you're not intending them to be, and she brings up one is, there's cycles of generations, right? That just don't know. And I love the line, we don't know what we don't know, because it's true. And then you've got, a generation learning it, like Amanda's, like mine, like ours, in learning more and learning more, talking more. But there's a lot of subtext, I think, that is not explored. And the subtext is important because it's empowering. You should know that is an incorrect subtext.
Yeah.
She didn't intend it, but you certainly can handle life. You certainly can do these things, if you learn how to maintain and manage whatever you're wrestling with. And I like that that I love that clip, and that really resonated with me as well, because sometimes, you know, the best intentions, there's consequences.
Have you experienced, or do you experience any panic attacks?
I have historically,
Okay.
but like once I quit drinking, I never had one again. But I
Wow.
would have a lot of panic attacks in college. So like it got to the point my senior year, I remember I was taking like 21 credit hours so I could try to graduate in 4 years, and like
Uh-huh.
an internship at Fox. And like I would wake up in the morning, like this is how like whack I was. I would bake in time for like an inevitable panic attack. So like wake up, breathe in a paper bag, have the panic attack, like, you know, put the makeup on, go to, you know, be gone all day working, whatever.
Yeah.
And they were so exhausting, and there's so much more. It's like the equivalent of a migraine to a headache if you've had
Mhm.
one. You know, panic attacks are scary because you really do think you're having a heart attack. Like you really think you're having a heart attack.
Yeah.
And Lord knows I've been in the ER like I'm having a heart attack, and they're like, well, we've got you hooked up to all these machines, and they're saying you're not. So maybe we'll call another department
Mhm.
because your heart's fine.
Mhm.
And that's the other, you know, part too. If that's ever happened to anyone, you know, when the doctor comes back and is like, your heart's healthy, it's fine. You're not having a massive coronary.
Yeah,
You're
I
like,
know. I've talked to people who have gone to the hospital because
yes,
they're having a heart attack, and it was a panic
yes.
attack. Yeah, I know.
I remember being like, I'm 21, 22. There's no way I could be having one, but I went to the ER. It was that real.
Yeah. Side note on that, one time I went to the ER. I walked in, I go, I am 98% certain I'm having a heart attack. And of course, they would go, okay, we'll have a seat.
Are you a doctor?
Yeah, right. And I had bruised my ribs. And I thought I was having a heart attack. Can you believe that?
Again, we're not doctors, so I think
Clearly
people can relate
not.
to that. I
Clearly
think
not.
people can totally relate to that. I mean,
Maybe.
it's
Maybe.
that when you start feeling pains anywhere down there,
Yeah,
you
that's
go,
true. That's true. That's true. One thing I learned with a psychiatrist, I think it was Dr. Hochman.
yeah,
And Dr. Hochman is a psychiatrist out of Texas.
yep,
And he was talking about, I'm going back to this whole childhood thing because
yeah,
I think, and I don't know, because as you pointed out, we're not doctors, but I think so much of our adult anxiety stems from our childhood experiences. And what resonated with Amanda's stories was what kind of communication are our children getting around their anxiety?
right.
Because in my household, I was told to suck it up all the time.
Totally.
Instead of being asked, how do you feel? I don't think anyone ever asked me how I felt as a child. I think they told me, suck it up because you are behaving or acting or feeling out of line.
Right. Be seen, not heard.
Yes,
Like
yeah. Or if
that,
you are going to be heard, smile, you know. And that comes in with a lot of, and that type of interaction, I think, creates a lot of anxiety in our adulthood.
big time.
And Dr. Hochman was explaining, he goes, you have got to let your kid, he said, if you see your kid playing on a steep driveway and you're afraid your kid's going to hurt and scrape his knee, okay, we got to keep him safe, but there is also nothing wrong with letting them to just play on the driveway. And if they get hurt, then guess what? They will learn. They will learn through that.
Right.
And it after hearing Amanda's story, it made me really think about how the messages we're sending to our youth about anxiety, about their anxiety.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I'm going to give a real life, like what I think is just, I mean, me and my friend laugh, but it's like funny, not funny.
Mm-hmm.
She has an 8-year-old, adore him, right? I mean, he's practically a nephew of mine. I learned that in his school, okay, at 8, are you ready for this? They put him in a quote, worry group for kids who worry a lot.
Okay.
Obviously, the first thought is way to stigmatize a child, first of all.
Like if you're going to worry, you got to go over to the group. Okay.
I mean, you're thinking, good. Oh my gosh. And then furthermore, you're like, well, what is even being taught in that group? Like, I would be super interested to attend the worry group with a bunch of
Yeah.
first graders. Like, what? But why put them in a group? Why can't they just be part of the class? But maybe they're a little higher anxiety if you
Right.
looked at it as a spectrum. Well, guess what? Collectively, either the other kids, make them feel, better, or sadly, how kids are, right?
Yeah,
Maybe
right.
who knows? But at the same time, they're not like plucked out, tucked over here, and then slapped with the word what. Like, to me, it seems very self-defeating. Like, you're trying to lower anxiety and you just heighten the crap out of it.
Yeah, I wonder if they call it worry group.
No, they literally, I'm not joking, they call it the worry group.
The worry group. I'm only maybe they're trying to destigmatize worrying by going,
Look,
hey, it's cool to
I'm not
worry. A lot of us do it. Come join
I'm
the
not a
group.
teacher, just like I'm not a I'm not a teacher.
Yeah.
Like, in fact, long periods with children are hard for me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, my first reaction was like, why does it, it just gets way to, kind of call it out, flash it out, and maybe your intentions are good, but I don't think he loves, showing up to the special group that the school knows about. And, it's just, to me, it seems.
Yeah, look,
I
I asked Dr.
defeating.
Romney once. I said, Dr. Romney is a clinical psychologist. She's also a parent. I said, what do you think we need to be teaching our kids? Number one, and she didn't even blink. She goes, empathy. We got to teach our kids empathy.
100%.
And I said, okay, I get that. Empathy, number one. Yay. And I go, but what else?
Yeah.
And she goes, okay, really? What kids need? They need to be taught resilience. And I thought, what a powerful combination. If you are raising a child who's empathic towards others and resilient and has a strong sense of resilience, they believe that even in the face of challenges that they can overcome, that even when things get hard, they can still ask for help, they can get supported, but they can do it. Then I think you are rocking and rolling. But as you mentioned, Jackie and I are not doctors, not teachers. We're not even parents. So that's just my 2 cents on the subject.
Well, it reminds me of that. I think it was Mike Tyson, the quote of, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth.
Nice.
And everyone has great plans in life. And I think life sometimes will sweep in and it can kick you in the teeth.
Yeah. And
there are circumstances that happen, and you can fall down. But yes, I think resiliency, although there can be scars in stripes that are earned, I think it's an unbelievable quality. It's one of my favorite quality in people whose stories I learn about. Every single person on It's All in Your Head podcast that I've interviewed is resilient by definition of even being on the podcast, living to tell.
Yes.
And sharing it with others and being that brave and courageous.
Yeah.
So, to me, I'm fortunate to meet super resilient people more frequently than not. And I will say it's my favorite quality, one of my favorites, because you just sit back and you're like, and you can't do anything but smile because you knew the odds were tough of them coming through something, whatever it may be. But you just, when you're that resilient, I love it. It makes me smile.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's look at this other clip from your discussion with Amanda Stern. If you are just joining us, Amanda is very open about her relationship with panic disorder, with feelings of extreme anxiety. And it was a great podcast. We'll link to it in the description of this video in case you haven't seen it. But let's take a look at this inside clip.
So I did do the things that scared me that I want. So it's not just that I do things that scare me. I want to make this very clear. It's that the things I wanted in life scared me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I wanted that life. So for instance, I wanted to be on stage, but I had stage fright. And it was so bad that I would throw up just thinking about being on stage. Yeah. So if I wanted to be on stage, I had to do it. And I had to face that stage fright and get through it enough to learn how to manage my stage fright so that I could do it. So things like that, reading from my book in public, writing a book, publishing a book,
All
writing
these
a play,
things.
all these things that are privileges to do.
Sure,
it's not like
sure.
it's not like these are horrible traumas that I had to do. I had to force myself to do. No, they're
Right.
extraordinary things. But as a person with a panic disorder, they felt terrifying and undoable to me. And so that is what I chose to do. I chose the life I wanted. I chose the life I was afraid to have.
Yes.
That's what I did. But yes, to your question, cognitive behavioral therapy is very helpful.
Okay. Great.
And that's just a way to sort of reframe the way that you think about things, the way that you think about things in black and white terms. It
was the most helpful thing to me going through CBT. For me, in my bipolar 2 disorder, it was game changer. I think CBT is like tried and true.
Yeah, it's amazing. And can I recommend a book?
Yes, please.
So this book just blew my mind and changed my life. Mm-hmm. And it's got the worst title. So I just need you to bear with the title and buy the book anyway.
Right.
I have nothing to do with this book. I've never met this person who wrote it. I just the book and I are a little bit married. Yeah. But the book doesn't know it's married to me. Right. It's called
Best kind of marriage.
It's called The Worry Cure. And it's by Robert Leahy, Leahy. It is fantastic. And he's a CBT therapist. And basically what it is it's CBT for you.
That's awesome.
And it's incredible. So that book is amazing. And then exposure therapy, which I did on my own. And I still,
Amanda, don't know how you did that on your own. It is one of the hardest things, even like being privy to watching, like an exposure therapy session. It is infinitely more difficult when you are witnessing it than one could ever fathom. Huge.
I mean, I think that for people without panic or anxiety, for them to really understand it, they have to think of the thing that scares them the most.
Yes.
Is being buried alive the thing that scares you the most? Because that is when you feel that in your body, when you feel your greatest fear, that is what people with anxiety and panic feel.
What role did anxiety and panic play in your bipolar 2?
I'd say anxiety played a large role because sort of where I would fall on a spectrum would be I would bounce between being very irritable, but as a reaction to the anxiety that I was experiencing, right? I had panic attacks. To this day, I still struggle with anxiety, although I've found things that have certainly helped it. But that's a large part, because I'll kind of spend a lot of time in more anxious states than less. So I get both sides of the coin as far as feeling depressed and kind of lethargic and like I just want to sleep and eat. And then I also get the anxiety side, which is, kind of this constant, energy or tension, running through you, like definitely amped, a little extra. So I identify with anxiety a ton.
Do you identify with what Amanda said about going and doing things that you're afraid of, going and feeling those feelings that you don't want to do, because on the other side of that is the life that you really want to live? Because I actually have an argument for the counter, but I want to hear your thoughts.
I love counter arguments. For me personally, I'll do things I'm afraid of just to like do them because I feel a sense of accomplishment, like if I do it. So it could be something as silly as like parasailing. I climbed the Sydney Harbor Bridge in Australia and like literally was terrified to do that, but I did it. And I remember we were all going around in a circle, our little group, and why are you here? And it was like, well, I'm really scared of heights. And people are like, why are you here? And I go, I don't know. I kind of, maybe it's counterphobic. I do it. I get a sense of accomplishment. So I'll kind of force myself to do it, even though I don't want to. But I think after I've done that repeated times, it does get a bit easier with practice. Like, I think you can kind of see that in smaller, again, examples. I'm not in the middle of a major, panic attack. But when you're a little further away and you have a little more visibility, I think you can kind of identify, what's going to make you super anxious, what you can kind of maybe help in some of your tools from your toolkit. But, it certainly manifests in all sorts of ways.
Your height example was literally the example I was going to use, because I have a fear of heights.
Yes.
When I would go rent apartments, because I've moved so much, I go, we don't need to go past like the 4th floor.
No, I want stairwell.
Yeah. Unnecessary. But you went and climbed the Sydney, whatever it is, the bridge, because you were afraid of heights. For me, I go, there's nothing of me getting over heights that makes my life better, And
you're right.
I just avoid it. And I'm over here thinking, should I be doing some height stuff and like get out of my comfort zone?
No, I'll be honest, Kyle, okay. That says way more about my psychological profile than it would yours, for the fact that was my reasoning. I do recognize that is more of like,
because if you were like, Kyle, my dream is to be a mountain climber, but I got to get over my fear of heights. So I went up this bridge. I go, Jackie, go for it. I can't wait for you to succeed. But if you're just like, I hate this, for me, it's like, I hate beets. So why am I going to eat beets? I just don't eat beets.
And I hate beets, and I would never eat beets, but I'll do a life-threatening activity.
Yeah. So I don't know. I understand that there is value in going outside of your comfort zone, but also why do I have to voluntarily sign up for anxiety?
It's so far out. Though, to your point, Kyle, again, I will pick in more of an extreme, right? Like that's more of my personality profile. Like, okay, we'll spend time doing something that scares the crap out of you versus something that might not scare the crap out of you.
Yeah. Well, like you don't read the comments on YouTube
at all. In fact, I accidentally saw one, but here's the thing. The comment I saw, and it was critiquing, they thought I was like hurrying Amanda along. Okay. Right. Like, which at first you're like, oh my gosh, like you would never want to obviously do that. Like, certainly not my intention. But when you played those clips back, like the dude had a point, even though that wasn't obviously my intention. I adore Amanda and think she's super talented, for whatever reason, you play it back and you're like, oh, okay. Like in the moment, obviously not at all. Wasn't doing that. I was super engaged and interested. Yeah. But by and large, no, I won't read comments. Because
that would be putting you in outside of your comfort zone, right?
Well,
to read the comments.
Yes. And I recognize that, there's going to be a level of like critique when you put your mug anywhere out in life. And that's fair. I'm not hating on the game, meaning I get it, but also too, like, I'm super sensitive. So I'd like to fancy myself smart enough to know if I have people who I really like and trust that can deliver me news that normally would crush me or crush my ego. Why wouldn't I have them filter through the comments? So I'm getting feedback, but it's constructive and it's protecting my mental health.
It's kind of like you're doing your own version of exposure therapy, because you're like, on the other side of the critiques, there's value, but let me get the critiques in a way where I can actually absorb them. Just like you're afraid of heights. So I'm not going to do Mount Everest. Number one, I'm going to do this like very safe little, this tall bridge in Sydney. Totally. I kind of like that. It's almost like, okay, talking this out with you is really helpful for me, because I want to, I I was so inspired by Amanda's story to face my fears in life. But I'm not going to face every single fear because some of them I'm too scared.
Some of them are like so valid to the point that if you faced it, I would question.
Okay. But I like this diluted fear that you could face.
I water everything down except my coffee.
Okay.
Like everything, I will dilute it to a point where it's like digestible, right? It's just little bits, but it goes a long way for me at least.
I like that. That's my takeaway from this is face your fears, and I'm talking to me, I'm not talking to the audience.
Sure.
Kyle, face your fears, but it's okay if you face little fears. You don't have to go to the biggest fear.
I've got the tiniest fear ever. I'll share. It's silly. It's a joke. No one else knows about it. Now I'll tell everyone, right?
All right.
Darla.
Doggy Darla.
Yeah, Doggy Darla is keeping me warm on my lap right now. She's the best dog ever. I live in a condo building. I'm paranoid from previous rescue dogs that she's going to bark like other dogs might do in the building. Paranoid about it. Major anxiety. Set up the nanny cam just to assuage, any anxiety. Well, I've been coming and going every day for months and months and months and months. And every time I leave my condo, I end up like clenching my nails so hard into my fist by the time I get to the lobby or the parking garage where I might be like this because I am like at the elevator bank, like, oh my God, what if she barks? What if I hear her bark? Yeah. So it's silly. It's minimal, but like at the same time, months have elapsed. Dogs aren't necessarily like people. They're not gonna, aren't gonna flip, and all of a sudden one day start acting different. But it's silly, but I have to leave my condo every day.
Yeah.
And it's gotten better because it was like almost
that was gonna be my question
at first.
Yeah.
Now it's a little clenched. Before it could have been like a stress ball and like my chest would beat thinking, is she? Now it's lessened, but it takes. It's taking me a while, but it's little.
Yeah. The fact that you're cognizant of that increase or decrease rather in anxiety is, I think, the real gift. Because for me, if I can see the improvement, no matter how marginal, then I'll keep doing it. I'll keep doing it. Yeah, exactly. Look, if y'all watch me on MedCircle, I've said it in plenty of videos. My 2 cents is to do as little as possible because you'll keep doing it. So if you want to start going to the gym, you should barely go. You should just be like, on Mondays, I go for 20 minutes and I go to the gym and you do that for 2 months and you just do your little Monday 20-minute workout. And that's better than doing 3 2-hour workouts for 2 weeks. And then you never go to the gym anymore. Cause
I love that. You're really pulling your own core, you're yanking your reins there, which I think to your point, for longevity, if your goal is to have a consistent workout routine, which I struggle with all the time, every year, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
But if that's your goal, strategizing about what's going to make you more consistent and longer is smart. Yeah. And I think you're right. There are certain people where I'll limit it to 3 days a week. Yeah. And I will never go over 4. Even if I want to, I won't go over 4.
Jackie, I so agree with this.
I won't do it.
Here's the proof, y'all. I started going to the gym 2.5 years ago. I go to the gym 3 days a week. I go 3 days every single week. I don't even think about it anymore. It's so easy. But if I were to have started 3 days a week, I would be like, because I hate the gym. I hate going to the gym.
Awful.
So it's like, you want to start eating better? I am so anti throw out all the bad stuff in your kitchen. Just drink more water. Start there. Do something so easy.
Yes, I think it's so easy to make statements like that. Just throw it out. Just don't do it. Well, guess what? If it were that easy, people would chuck things and
that's just what you would do. They'd be like, this is how you do it.
That's kind of my thought, but also too, there's a deprivation. I don't often diet, nor have I really tried. Like, I'll be honest. That's maybe the one facet where I haven't struggled with body image issues. Like, thankfully don't have to wrestle with that one. But, it's one of those things where you're cognizant of, like I am, of what you're putting in your body. You don't have to murder your body to feel like you're working out or losing weight.
No.
It doesn't have to be painful,
Yeah.
to do those things. But to your point, if you make a conscious effort, even if you have to, I call it, I'll have to underdo it for a little bit. Whatever.
I told my trainer, I said the first session we had, his name's Chad, which is such a trainer name, by the
shout
way.
out to Chad.
Shout out to Chad, Body by Chad. Chad, I go, Chad, I looked at him right in the eye, I go, I don't want to be here. I don't like being here. And if you make this too hard, I will not come back. Do you understand? And he's like, I understand. I should talk to my therapist that way, like really direct. And I said, and he goes, I get it. So this guy had me doing push-ups on my knees the first like 3 weeks. And I was like, you're listening because I don't want to, Anyway, I belabored that point too much. I could keep going.
No. It's a good example because I think a lot of people can get that.
Yeah. We have more great podcasts coming from you next week, talking about adult, or is it adult ADHD?
He was diagnosed as a child.
Okay. As a child.
Yep. So Tim was diagnosed. He was one of the first children like in the 80s.
Oh,
that was getting prescribed things like Ritalin.
Yep.
I think hydrocodone, those type of drugs were being marketed to children with ADD. And he was like that first generation, which he and I are around the same age. So I remember when all my friends were being put on these drugs and getting diagnosed with that as well, just in another state, than where he grew up.
Well, to get that podcast, you're in the right spot right now. Of course, it'll be available wherever podcasts are distributed, but it'll be right here on our YouTube channel where you can actually watch the interview. So go ahead and click the subscribe button so you get notified of that video, plus other videos. Right now, we're releasing one session a week on attachment theory.
I love that.
I'm sure you already know what attachment theory is. People know this. If you watch MedCircle, you know this. What are you going to say, Jack?
No, the attachment series is great because before I started watching it, I went into it with like the attitude of, I doubt I'm like attached to much. I move a lot. I'm single.
You're like, I'm detached. Yeah.
I got Darla. Like there's an attach, but and I'm almost taking it literally, and I'm going, so, like I'm probably devoid. I probably don't even have an, of course I'm not. I'm like everyone else.
Yeah.
And I look forward to the other ones. I don't want to give anything away because obviously I've seen them.
Yeah.
But I think they're so relevant because it applies to everyone.
And here's where it really applies. When people join MedCircle, and sometimes I'll get an email from someone and they say, hey, I'm in MedCircle and I'm really here because I've just been in bad relationships and I'm single and I want to like figure out why I keep ending up in these relationships.
Sure.
And I go, well, look no farther than watching our attachment series, because you want to know how you are. You want to know if you're securely attached, if you're not securely attached, and you want to know that for yourself. And then you want to know how the other person might be so you can properly navigate that. I think we could really call that How to Date. Like that could be the series name.
I mean, it's relevant to your point. It's how I interact with family, how I attach with friends, romantic partners, business associates, colleagues, group members. I mean, I love that stuff because it's psychology that everybody can understand. Not everyone has bipolar disorder. Not everyone struggles with anxiety or depression, but literally everybody. And I'm like, I'm terrified. Mine's probably insecure.
The final session, you can take a test to determine what your attachment style might be, so people can look forward to that, and then you'll be able to figure out what is my attachment style.
No, I need to. You know what, Kyle? I'm gonna bump that up in my queue of stuff to do.
Good. Well, text me your answer. I want to know.
I will.
Yeah, I'll text you my hypothesis before you take the test. Cool. Jackie, you're the best. Congrats on the podcast. We'll look forward to next week. Don't go anywhere though just yet, because we're going to show you a sneak peek of next week's podcast, all on ADHD. So take a look and remember, whatever you're going through, you got this.
I don't want to say I'm ADHD. It's hard for me to say that. It's hard for me to say my brain doesn't work the same as everybody else's. I'm ashamed of that even today, and I know that all our brains work differently. I know that I shouldn't be. But I feel terrible about it. I always think it's going to get easier. And it does in adulthood. It does, because you have so much more control over your environment, but it never goes away.